Hey everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Spreadsheet Tips and Tricks. In today's episode, we're going to focus on the concatenate formula, which is used to literally string things together. You can bring multiple values, whether they are cell references or literal string values, like hard cell text references, um, into a single cell. So we're going to walk through this together, and we're going to create an example of how we might use this. But again, this is just kind of one example, with the idea being that once you get the handle on how the concatenate formula works, it can really kind of open up a lot of capability and flexibility for how you use spreadsheets. So we're going to start by creating a sample set of data. We're going to include information about people. So let's do first name, last name, job title. We have their prefix, we have a suffix, and perhaps we have a middle initial, or middle name. So go ahead and fill out this data here. All right, so we've got some sample data here now. We've created a table with two records, and we've got all this information separated into different columns. But there are perhaps times when it makes sense to include this information in a single column. So perhaps we want a column that has the full name of an individual. So let's start with John, our example, first example, Joe example. So here what we're going to do is we're going to say we want to concatenate the first name, then we want the middle name, and then we want the last name, and then we want the suffix, and I realize I forgot the prefix, so we will just kind of go back in the order here, and I want the prefix to be the first thing that shows up. Oops. And we just exited out of the formula unintentionally, but you can see what we have so far here. We have Joe, John, example, the third. We need to add that prefix in. As you can see, the concatenate formula just offsets all the different values with a comma. So I can put the prefix reference in. All right, so what we've got so far looks okay. All the values are right, but what obviously is wrong is the spacing, right? Because we wouldn't want to, show somebody's name like that. So as I mentioned at the top of the video, we can use concatenate to reference cells, which we're doing here, or to reference literal values. So what we need here is just some literal spaces to happen between the cells. So a less clean way to do this would be to literally just go into these cell references and add a space. But that's kind of messy because then you've got these errant spaces that are hanging out in all of your random data. So in order to sidestep that, all we need to do is use the concatenate formula to add another value in here. But instead of a cell reference this time, we're going to just include a space. And what's important to note here is that we're including a space within double quotation marks, because that's what tells the spreadsheet formula that instead of referencing a cell, we want to reference like a literal string value. So here you can see in the concatenate formula example that's shown on screen, they've got just literal values wrapped in quotation marks. So if I make this change, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Go ahead and copy that. Let's try that one more time. So we'll put that space here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Go ahead and paste that in there. We're going to essentially just add spaces between each reference. And now we've got the full name. I can use the fill handle to pull that formula down. And as I make changes, maybe I realize, oh, actually, this is not a doctor, he is a lord. I can come in here and change that, and the full name reference will update without having to manually refer to it. Now, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Concatenate can be an incredibly flexible formula that you use for all kinds of data and data aggregation. Some things to keep in mind: if for some reason you need to include double quotation marks within the literal text string. So, for example, let's say we wanted the middle name to be wrapped in quotation marks here. What we would do is we would find that middle name reference, which is cell F11. But obviously, we're going to run into a problem here if we put a quotation mark there because it's going to let it think that that's the end of the quotation mark and then we've got an extra floating quotation mark. What we want to do instead is reference the quotation mark's value, the character value. So this is going to sound and seem a little weird, but you can just kind of make a reference of this for the future. But so again, the goal here is we want to wrap that middle name in quotation marks for some reason. I'm not really sure what that reason is, but I'm going to make a reference to character 34. Oops, excuse me. And that needs to come outside of the double quotes. And you can see here that character 34 is that double quote character. So now if we wanted to add it to the other side, we would do the same thing here. We would simply offset it with a comma. Oops, 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 oops. And now you can see that the middle name is wrapped in quotation marks. Again, not really sure when or why you'd want to do this, but you just kind of get a sense for the fact that if you need to include a quotation mark, there is a way to do that.